Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to D.E.I. Deathwatch, the show that chronicles the downfall and the doubling down of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And today is a very special show because it's a follow-up to the previous episode, but I'll get into that momentarily. First, who's joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon? Walter Tomaszewski. Good afternoon. Plague Trucker Zach. Hello. Mike Savage. Blarg. Keeverdam. Good afternoon. I thank you, Keeverdam, for providing the link to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society donation page. Everybody at the top of the chat box, there's a link there. If you can donate, please do so. But even if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that. And thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the link. Jill Powers, good afternoon. Anybody else here? The lovely Sherry, hello. And to anybody else who's lurking or in the future or I've missed so far. Oh, more people popping in. Resolute Germ, Simon Willikins, hello. Resolute Germ, hello. Kiro Soldier, hello. But to everybody else, good afternoon. Okay, got a lot to get into, so let me give you the preamble for those of you that joined late. About a week and a half ago, the Trump administration, through the Department of Education, gave a warning to every school district in the country saying that if you do not relinquish, divest yourselves of, or get rid of your diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, you will be at risk of losing all federal funding. And in addition to this, they also asked or mandated that each school district sign a letter effectively recertifying the fact that they conform to federal civil rights laws regarding anti-discrimination in schools. Now, almost immediately, several states decided to vocally defy doing any such thing. The first prominent one was New York, but thereafter there were several that followed, such as Oregon, Massachusetts, and Vermont. And in the last episode of DEI Deathwatch, I read 3 different articles covering these declarations from 3 different states that they would not overturn their DEI programs in their departments of education and school districts. The only problem with those articles was, despite the journalistic nature of them, none of them actually detailed anything about what the DEI initiatives and programs in those schools or school districts actually entailed. And I complained about this with every article I read. I was like, they're not going to overturn their DEI programs. Like, well, what constitutes their DEI programs? It didn't say. And I don't know. There might be articles out there that do give some details, but none of the ones I read did. So I decided, as I said, I would do some research between the last episode and this to find out exactly what goes on in a cursory sense in Oregon, Massachusetts, and Vermont insofar as their DEI initiatives. Now, a couple of disclaimers ahead of this. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm not a civil rights expert. So everything that I say going forward comes completely from a layman's perspective on the subject matter. Also, something else to keep in mind, simply saying that you have a DEI initiative or program in place in your company or organization does not inherently mean anything you're doing tempts fate with federal civil rights laws. It all comes down to exactly what are you doing, as in the devil in the details. And also, I have to say that everything I'm about to go over in Oregon, Massachusetts, and Vermont may, in fact, because of some precedent, because of some statute, because of some loophole in the law that I'm not aware of and not educated in, maybe all of it flies under the radar legally. It could be. I don't know. What I am going off of, however, as a baseline and boilerplate for putting up what I found against existing federal law is Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And I know I've gone over this before, but I'll go over it again just for edification's sake and just so everybody knows where I'm coming from. Title VI of 1964 says, in part, it prohibits the discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin in programs and activities receiving federal financial assistance. Okay, programs and activities. To quote within, simple justice requires that public funds, to which all taxpayers of all races, colors, and national origins contribute, not be spent in any fashion which encourages, entrenches, subsidizes, or results in racial, color, or national origin discrimination. If a recipient of federal financial assistance is found to have discriminated and voluntary compliance cannot be achieved, The federal agency providing the assistance should either initiate fund termination proceedings or refer the matter to the Department of Justice for appropriate legal action. So that is the basis on which I'm going to be holding up everything we're going over today as a benchmark. Does it involve discrimination on the basis of race in some way, shape, or form? And since money is fungible, since all of the institutions I'll be talking about are public agencies accepting federal funds and taxpayer money, they fall under Title VI, so far as I understand it, as a layman. Okay, have I gotten my disclaimers out of the way? I hope so. A couple more hellos here, and then we'll get into it. Captain Fandom Nerd, good afternoon. Tack Alpaca, hello. Dexter's Lab, hello. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody? SWD40, hello. Angelverse, hello. And I think that's everybody I see. Again, if I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, hello. Oh, the mum is here. Hello, the mum. So, with all that being said, let's start off with the great state of Oregon. Yes, Oregon, whose governor told all the school districts in the state and the Department of Education therein to hold the line when it comes to their DEI programs. Now, I also have to admit that when I was looking into Oregon stuff, their presentation of what goes into programs and activities that might be questionable, well, I mean, sometimes the language can be a little nuanced, maybe a little unclear, a little ambiguous. So you'll just have to bear with me for a second. Let's look at the Center for Black Student Excellence in Portland Public Schools. Not the Center for Student Excellence, mind you, the Center for Black Student Excellence. A bold, fresh approach to Black student learning. The Center for Black Student Excellence comprises a constellation of academic programs, strategies, supports, and experiences reinforced by physical infrastructure. Each of these elements work in coordination to create a transformational approach to Black student learning. The problem: decades of underinvestment, systemic racism, let's hit the irony button there, lack of coordinated systems of support, and discriminatory practices have resulted in an enduring opportunity and achievement gap for Black students in Portland. Mission: advance a culture of Black excellence while meaningfully integrating joy and healing. Well, I'm sure Kamala Harris will be happy to hear that. Unify and elevate the Black educational experience. And lastly, improve outcomes for Black students. The mechanism: the Center for Black Student Excellence. CBSE as a place, the physical place of the Center for Black Student Excellence, will serve as both a monument to augment in-school learning and a resource hub of programs, aid, and multi-use spaces as students gather for affinity, staff gather for professional development, and community members gather to facilitate honest discussions, perhaps courageous conversations. The resources of the space will extend digitally for families who've been displaced and for accessibility. This goes on for another few paragraphs, but I'll save myself the trouble. So yeah, I know it might be a little nuanced, might be a little vague, but I don't know. Maybe does that sound racially discriminatory to you? Now, there's an extra element to this Center for Black Student Excellence that isn't really germane to its very existence as a program or activity within a public school district in the state of Oregon that's denying that it's doing anything perhaps legally questionable when it comes to Title VI and other discrimination laws. But this thing doesn't actually exist yet. This isn't just meant to be some sub-department cubicle inside of the Department of Education in Oregon or Portland Public Schools. No, this is meant to be an actual facility. This is meant to be a community center. But it isn't. And strangely enough, the timing of this couldn't have been weirder, is that when I started looking this up, a news story came out just the other day regarding this very institution. And so even though it's not technically relevant to, again, its very existence being a question mark as to its potential legal problems. Let's take a look at a minute or two of the story from the news station regarding this. Let me make sure I got all my overlays up here. Because as far as I understand, this thing still hasn't broken ground. Let's listen to a minute or two of this.
Portland Public Schools has had a plan to build a Center for Black Student Excellence for the past 5 years.
5 years, you say? 5 years. I wonder what happened 5 years ago that suddenly inspired them to decide to make a racially exclusionary center for student excellence.
As part of a bond measure, 75% of voters approved in 2020.
I thought it was an amazing idea and much needed.
Including Rochelle Chase Miller.
Now, I don't know if they mention it in the story here or they mention it within the minute or two I'm going to play, but if I remember correctly, that bond measure, it raised $60 million of taxpayer money to pay for this thing. So just keep that in mind too.
A mother of 2 kids in Portland Public.
Families need someplace for their kids to be.
They're racially exclusionary kids to be.
The center is expected to be a place where kids, especially Black children,
especially? It sounds like it's only,
can come and grow. And the idea behind it is that it will make Oregon's biggest school district a little bit more equitable.
Right. Equitable.
As a Black student who grew up in Portland Public Schools, I witnessed and experienced some of those inequities.
But 5 years after that bond passed, there's still been little movement. It's still unclear where the center would be located and how much it would cost to run.
Well, where is it?
And that raised eyebrows at a March 4th school board meeting.
I mean, asked before this meeting is just to see the specific sort of long-term financial plans.
That didn't happen, but staff did give an update detailing goals for the center.
Well, it's almost like it was just one big knee-jerk, virtue signal back in 2020. And I can't think of what happened in 2020 that might have spurred this on. Maybe it was George Flurd. And yet, so money has been set aside for a racially exclusionary program center for students in a public school district in the state of Oregon, which is meaning to, by the governor's words, hold the line against overturning any DEI policies and practices. A link to the full news report, I should say, is in the description below. Again, the fact that it hasn't actually been created yet, the fact that it has been funded but yet not created is kind of separate. It's more just sort of like, it's a big kind of red flag to what is going on in Oregon public schools. But that's not all. No, that's not all. There's something else. There's the state report card for the 2022-2023 school year. Now, this is the yearly report that Oregon puts out talking about their activities and what they've been up to and what their progress is on certain things. It goes over a whole lot of stuff. But I'm going to take a look at 2 particular pages in the report. Again, link to this is in the description below if you want to look at it yourself. Going down to the, what's the 23rd page on the PDF, but I think is like the 19th page or so. The 19th page on the report. Education initiatives rooted in equity, racial equity, and anti-racism. The Oregon Department of Education is committed to upholding educational equity throughout Oregon's public schools. This involves recognizing the historical and ongoing trauma inflicted specifically on Native tribes, Indigenous, Black, and persons of color through our nation's education systems and responding with conscious, persistent, and collective actions rooted in equity, racial justice, and anti-racism. It also requires humility, acknowledging that Oregon is part of a global movement working to educate about harmful impacts of anti-Blackness, white supremacy, systemic discrimination. I'm going to keep underscoring some of these phrases with halting irony, given the other things that they're up to, and all forms of hatred that impact our students and communities. ODE is working in partnership with school communities to guide actionable ways of tending to the real and divisive impacts of fear, hate, bias, and racialized trauma. This entails supporting school districts in educating students, staff, educators, and school community members about the nation's many ethnic cultures and histories, fostering safe and supportive school environments for transgender students, and affirming that Black Lives Matter and every student belongs. Learn more about ODE's Equity Decision Toolkit. So that was the first part. But then when we get to something, you could say, well, that's kind of flowery language. It's a little uncertain about it. It's not saying anything specifically about any particular race or anything, or trying to be divisive until you get down to page 20, student success. During the 2019 legislative sessions, Oregonians affirmed their commitment to Oregon's children, families, communities, educators, schools, and our collective future by passing House Bill 3427, the Student Success Act. Through the SSA's statewide education initiatives account, ODE is investing in the implementation and expansion of new or existing programs that serve American Indian, Alaska Native, Black African American, Latino, Latina, Latinx, and Mesoamerican Indigenous LGBTQSIA+, and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander students. These initiatives aim to empower and invite empathy and community-based actions that honor the diversity, strength, brilliance, and resilience of Oregon's youth. And then you have summaries of the American Indian Alaska Native education, African American Black student success, Latino student success, LGBTQ2SIA+ student success, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander student success. And there's no Asian American student success. There's no white American students. I guess they don't matter. I guess setting aside funds from your federally funded school district and Department of Education for every potential racial demographic is too much to ask for in Oregon, where they're holding the line. Yeah, so there you go. Let me see. So that's the statewide Department of Education in Oregon and their report card. Activities as old as 2023. I'm sure that they stopped all that by now, even though they're holding the line. One more thing from Oregon. This is another little video about some money that they're spending. Now remember, money is fungible. So if you're spending money, even if you get it from another source, but you're still accepting federal financial assistance, you are, at least under Title VI, supposed to watch what you do in your programs and activities. So what's going on with this one?
We're all chipping in.
Right now at Portland Public Schools and other districts, staffing shortages means it's all hands on deck.
Staffing shortages, all hands on deck.
Even Superintendent Guadalupe Guerrero is stepping in to help.
Oh, the superintendent of Portland Public Schools, okay.
So if that means the superintendent should fill in and cover kindergarten lunch duty, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, that sounds perfectly reasonable. I mean, everybody's got to chip in. Everybody wears more than one hat, depending on the circumstances.
While the staffing shortage has been an issue for years, uncertainty in a pandemic has made it worse.
Now, yeah, this is a couple of years old again. It's strange how after about 2022, 2023, the really explicit stuff in some schools kind of faded out. I don't know what happened. Do you think anything happened in 2022 or 2023 that might have caused public school districts to be a little bit more concerned about what they, published or advertised that they were involved in?
You're seeing today critical staff shortages, and that's especially true with teachers in particular areas, but it's especially acute with school leaders. Typically every spring would have some level of a candidate pool, but we're finding that pool is getting increasingly shallow.
Increasingly shallow. God, well, how would you propose to solve for this problem?
But $8.2 million in grant money from the Wallace Foundation is expected to help in more ways than one.
Do
The
tell.
grant will help develop a principal pipeline or on-ramp that'll develop and nurture aspiring administrators.
Oh, a principal pipeline for aspiring administrators. Okay. Sounds reasonable.
It'll also mean more mentorship and coaching.
Okay, fair enough.
And a big part of the plan is to make sure candidates are diverse.
Oh, make sure candidates are diverse. Oh, how do you make sure that principal pipeline candidates to be mentored and hired are diverse?
With a commitment to racial equity and
Racial equity. Oh, okay.
social justice.
Oh, social justice.
You need leaders who not only can operate and manage a school building along with their faculty, but that they're also prepared to ask some critical questions.
Critical questions. I love critical questions. Is there any kind of race theory attached to those critical questions?
It's also important that our students and our school communities see a diversity in our educators and in our school principals that's reflective of the demographic of our students.
Oh, okay. So you're going to assess who to hire on the basis of their demographic fit within the percentage of your. Is that kind of like a quota? I mean, not that that's, not bad enough, but just now here's the thing, guys. And I know this is more for legal experts. Do you think it counts as a program or activity in your hiring and pipeline practices? You think those two terms are ambiguous enough that it would entail and maybe contain what you're doing to increase your staffing? And if there's any portion of that process that has a racial test, would that be questionable, do you think?
I don't think it's okay for a student of color to go through their pre-K-12 experience and never see an educator or leader who looks like them.
Oh, you don't think it's okay? Oh, so you would make sure that every student has at least one teacher in the course of their academic career that is not white. Oh, okay.
The grant money will also help Portland Public work with local universities to build up the candidate pool.
The candidate pool first filtered on the basis of their skin color,
with the goal of developing more leaders of color.
Oh, yeah, well, okay. I'm glad it's that explicit. Aren't you?
Portland Public was one of just 8 school districts across the country to receive the grant. Christine Pedawanich, KGW News.
Well, goody for Portland Public Schools. I wonder how that initiative has advanced over the last 3 or 4 years since that report came out. I'm sure there's nothing potentially questionable that Portland Public Schools and school districts elsewise in Oregon may have done or initiated that would cause any conflict with Title VI after all of that stuff. But anyway, that's what I had for Oregon. Also, I should mention, and I didn't before, do not take anything that I'm putting out here as some kind of exhaustive list of anything and everything these states or these particular school districts are doing. I spent more than a couple of hours looking up and finding out what the different states and departments of education had posted publicly, but I cannot call this anything more than a cursory look at what's available. In fact, a lot of things have either been archived, taken offline, or are behind login paywall kind of things for more details. So this is just what me, layman researcher, was able to find in the brief time that I've spent doing it. But I did say I'd follow up, and I mean to keep my promises. Let's move on to the great state of Massachusetts. Oh, Massachusetts. What's going on in the Mass? Well, let's take a look at one of their websites right now called Educational Equity. This is from the, wrong state. That was my bad. Hold on. I got the wrong state there. My bad. Let me get that back up. I didn't want to lose that. Where'd it go? That's for Vermont. That wasn't for Massachusetts. My mistake. I got 17 different tabs open, guys. I apologize. I'll hope to bring that back. Let's try this again. Where is my Massachusetts stuff? No, not that. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. Okay. That's what I wanted. Live TV, everybody. Here we go. This is from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Diverse and culturally responsive workforce. As outlined in the educational vision, the department partners with districts, schools, and programs to develop and sustain a workforce that is diverse, culturally responsive, well-prepared, and committed to continuous improvement so that all students have equitable access to effective educators. Districts, schools, and programs feel empowered and prepared to, 1, develop an increased and robust pipeline of diverse and well-prepared educators and leaders. 2, create the conditions to sustain and retain diverse and effective staff, particularly those who entered the field through alternate pathways. Okay. And 3, implement opportunities for all staff to engage in a cycle of continuous improvement utilizing effective teaming structures. And then they go down to some statistics on how racially and ethnically diverse their educators and superintendents are. And there you go. They have some statistics. I mean, I'm sure they don't sort of outline any goals to meet or barriers to break or anything. And then they go down into their various little programs and activities that bolster this. And as I was looking down this list, I came across this one here, the Inspired Initiative. What is the Inspired Initiative? Well, let's take a look at that, shall we? Let's see. Again, live TV. I got to go from tab to tab here. Okay, the Inspired Initiative. Our vision. All children will have the opportunity to see their ethnic, linguistic, and racial backgrounds represented in teachers and leaders within their classrooms and schools. All educators, now this is the important part, all educators, especially Black, Indigenous, and educators of color, will be recognized, supported within, and celebrated by their schools and districts for their value and positive impact on PK through 12 students. Their value. I mean, if you're an artist, the word value has a different meaning than in a lot of instances, which is also apropos when you're talking skin color. But apparently all educators, but especially particular educators of particular races, will be celebrated. Again, I don't know. Maybe this is completely legal, but I think a Title VI, it's a program and or an activity within an entity accepting federal financial assistance, and they are discriminating on the basis of, I don't know. Why it matters. Massachusetts students are increasingly diverse, but our educators are not. Research shows that a diverse teacher workforce matters. Teachers of color boost the academic performance of students of color, including improved reading and math test scores, improved graduation rates, and increases in aspirations to attend college. Well, heck, if that's all that's needed to improve student academic success, then why ever not have a student of color have anyone other than a teacher of color? In fact, I mean, if that's really the recipe for academic success, then the best thing to do would just to make sure that every student always has classmates and teachers who look like them. I mean, racial segregation is the answer to all of our academic problems, right? Right? And just for the sake of covering myself, I'm asking that in a completely facetious and sarcastic fashion. Because if you take that statement out to its logical conclusion, why wouldn't you want racial segregation in schools if you know that that's all it takes for academic success? I mean, aside from decades upon decades of, civil rights laws and people's lives being lost over the fight for equality in schools and such, aside from all that. Anyway, the Inspired Initiative connects current educators with DESE to help cultivate, support, and retain a culturally responsive and diverse educator workforce in Massachusetts schools. The initiative promotes education as a meaningful, rewarding career pathway and elevates the voices and brilliance of educators of color. The initiative consists of two communities, the statewide Affinity Network and the Inspired Fellowship. The statewide Affinity Network aims to create a safe hybrid space for diverse educators of color and diverse educator allies to network, engage in dialogue about their authentic experiences, and explore professional development opportunities and or actions that make for a more equitable experience in their schools. Well, golly, I mean, if you're setting aside a specific space for people that have a particular race to hang out in your public school district, I'm sure that's perfectly fine. The Inspired Fellowship. Inspired Fellows are in-service professionals who are committed to increasing the racial and ethnic diversity of our teacher workforce by leveraging their backgrounds and personal connections to communicate stories and calls to action to current and prospective educational leaders, helping them understand the impact of Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, and multiracial educators on pre-K through 12 students. The fellowship is designed around 4 goals. Number 1, increase the racial diversity of the Massachusetts teaching workforce by providing licensure support and building interest in the profession. 2, increase the retention rates of Black, Indigenous, and educators of color, BIPOC educators, and current educators committed to a diverse workforce by creating a network of like-minded, anti-racist educators and by supporting districts as they strive to improve working conditions for BIPOC educators. Not working conditions for educators writ large, but working conditions for people on the basis of their race or ethnicity. Build connections between fellows to create a stronger sense of community and support via an affinity network. And lastly, elevate the voices of fellows so that the work done in districts and DESE better centers the lived experience of BIPOC educators. Now, does the Inspired Fellowship Program or the statewide affinity network, do they sound like programs or activities that discriminate on the basis of race to you? Seems like it to me. But again, I'm not a lawyer, just a layman, just, referencing basic civil rights law and using that as a benchmark. But fortunately, they also put out a little video about the Inspired initiative. So I thought we'd watch that. It's only about a minute long. Let's see. That's not the video. Where is the video? There it is. That's what it was. I have too many tabs open, guys. I got to tell you, this is probably the first stream I had more than like 4 tabs open at once or something. And it's all this various different things I need to click on and open and close and so on. All right. I'm trying to do this as smoothly as I can, but it is live TV. So I do apologize for that ahead of time. Before I get to that, though, over on the chat, thank you so much, the mom. My color I identify with is sky purple, pink, green. Well, now, I think a storm's a-coming, if that's your sky color. But either way, thank you, the mom. Appreciate it very much. Hope you're having a good day and hope you're enjoying the show for such as it is. Also, Divine Petulance, tabs everywhere. It's true. Too many tabs. Also, Unfair Ophelia. Unfair Ophelia. Hello. And Juliet, hello. And also, Jill Powers had to bounce. Bye, Jill. Have a good day. So let's watch for a moment what the Inspire Initiative has to say. Are you inspired?
What does it mean to be inspired?
I don't know. What does it mean to be inspired? And why do you have your hand up like that?
Inspired stands for
in-service professionals increasing racial and ethnic diversity.
Oh, is that what it means?
And inspire educators, anyone who is committed to
increasing the diversity of our educator workforce.
Oh, and how do you do that? By what mechanism do you increase the diversity of your educator workforce? Are you perhaps making hiring decisions on the basis of race by any chance? I know. It's a crazy question to ask.
Increasing retention rates for educators of color.
And ensuring culturally responsive practices in our classrooms.
In Massachusetts, 40% of students are people of color.
Oh my gosh. So what?
Meanwhile, fewer than 8% of our teachers identify as people of color.
Oh my gosh. This disparity must be addressed. And the only test of virtue here is skin color, which I'm sure, again, does not implicate any kind of racial discrimination in anything that the school districts in Massachusetts or the Department of Education in Massachusetts has been doing all these years.
This gap is a problem.
No, it's not a gap, it's a disparity, and a disparity does not inherently equal an inequity. But you've decided to take it as such, and again, just by implication, might be doing something a little questionable to solve for this problem, quotation marks.
Diversity expands our worldview.
It does?
And gifts us with empathy and skills to navigate social issues.
Well, the only definition of diversity I'm seeing here is skin color. So, does it?
Research suggests that diversity in our teacher workforce is important because teachers of color boost the academic performance of all students.
Oh, well then heck, get rid of all the white teachers. I mean, what a drag they are on academic success. I mean, why even bother? Just don't hire white teachers and everybody's scores will go up. Right?
This is especially true for students of color whose graduation rates and aspirations to attend college increase.
Well, then like I was saying before, I guess get rid of all the white teachers and only have teachers who aren't white. And for maximum effectiveness, make sure that classrooms are filled up with all the same race and matching teachers, and it'll be perfect. That's obviously where this thinking leads us, does it not?
Teachers of color enhance school climate and culture.
They serve as role models and provide all students with perspectives that enrich their lives.
Can a non-white teacher be a role model for a white student if a white teacher cannot be a role model for a non-white student? I know, it's a crazy question to ask.
Teachers of color raise the cultural competency of our schools.
Just by reflex?
They're more likely to advocate for culturally responsive practices.
No, so non-colored teachers are inherently dumb and racist?
And fight against unfair policies that impact our students of color.
Oh, unfair policies, you say?
Join the Inspired Fellows and the Massachusetts Department of Education in our efforts to increase teacher diversity in our schools.
Are you inspired?
Oh, I'm constantly inspired. DEI is a source of infinite inspiration. It really is. Hi. Okay, so there you go. That's the Inspired program in Massachusetts schools. How amazing is that? I don't know. I'm not quite sure how amazing that is. Let's see. What did we want to look at next? Let me make sure I got make sure I got my tabs right before I start clicking on things. Yeah, let's look at that one. Did I already have that one up? I don't think I did. I didn't, but let's take a look at it anyway. Okay, let's move on to our next example. A little report from the Massachusetts Education to Career Research and Data Hub. This is an official website of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So, still talking about federal money here somewhere. The state of educator racial diversity in Massachusetts. This data story provides an overview of the current state of educator racial diversity in Massachusetts, exploring its significance, challenges, and potential benefits. Key points covered include the impact of educator diversity on student achievement, discipline, disparities, and school climate. 2, opportunities to increase teacher diversity in Massachusetts across the pipeline. And 3, innovative programs that seek to recruit, prepare, and foster greater educator diversity within the state. Let's just jump down to those last two there, specifically about how to increase the teacher diversity, because I'm more curious to know, well, exactly how would you do that? Teacher diversity pipeline. The teacher diversity pipeline refers to the steps that lead to a diverse teacher workforce in public schools. It begins with public school students, particularly those from underrepresented backgrounds. Okay, and follows their journey to become licensed teachers who remain in the profession. The teacher diversity pipeline consists of the following critical steps. 1, graduate high school. 2, attend a 4-year college. 3, take the Communication and Literacy Skills MTEL. 4, pass the Communication and Literacy Skills MTEL. 5, earn a teacher's license. 6, be hired as a teacher. And 7, remain in the classroom for 3 years. And of course, all of this focus comes down to students based on their race, because we need a diverse teacher workforce. We don't want a stale, old, homogenous teacher workforce. So this focus of time, energy, and funds will value students based on their skin color first and foremost, I'm sure. The path to diversifying the educator workforce begins early and faces hurdles at each transition. The biggest leaks in the pipeline for potential teachers of color are between high school and college graduation and between college and becoming licensed teachers. Let's examine racial diversity at each stage of the teacher pipeline and identify the gaps. Okay. And let's see, we've got a little thing here. Oh, there we go. Ooh, look at those lines go. Diversity leaks in the teacher pipeline. Research identifies 3 key pipeline leaks where teachers of color are less likely than white teachers to persist through the pipeline. 1, enrolling in a 4-year college. 2, graduating from a 4-year college. And 3, taking the Communication and Literacy Skills test. Okay. Moving on to the next slide. Enrolled in K through 12, students of color make up about 30% of the K through 12 population. This is the starting pool of potentially diverse teaching candidates. Okay, well, moving on. Graduated high school. A gap emerges here as students of color graduate high school at lower rates than white students. This shrinks the pool of prospective teachers of color. Okay, well, how would you solve for this problem? Enrolled in 4-year college. The gap widens further with lower college enrollment rates for Black, Asian, and Hispanic students compared to white students. Is there any, and I know I hate to ask this, is there any like comparative population demographics you could be putting up alongside this? I mean, maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't, but I'd be curious to know. Graduated college. Completion gaps persist, with students of color graduating college at lower rates than white peers. This significantly reduces the pool of potential teachers of color. Okay, and how are you going to solve for all of this? Took MTEL exam. Testing gaps arise as proportionally fewer candidates of color take the teacher certification exam compared to white students, or white candidates. Okay. Pass the MTEL. Pass rate gaps in the examination emerge across racial ethnic groups, while 91% of white candidates pass the CLST. Once licensed, there are minimal differences across groups in teacher hiring and retention rates. And then it just goes on to the end. Okay, well, what do we do? Teacher exams contribute to the underrepresentation of teachers of color. All right. Now, speaking of teachers of color, I know I've learned a thing or two from my friend P Dog Knight. And you could too on the Morning Night Live. I believe it's 5 days a week on the P Dog Knight channel at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern time, where he goes over the news of the day from a diverse perspective, because, you know, that's what he's got. He's a different person than I am. That's what I mean when I say diverse. What does the Massachusetts Department of Education mean when they say diverse, do you think? Well, let's move on. As the pool of Massachusetts students moves from K through 12 to high school graduation to college enrollment to college graduation, the first 4 stages of the teacher diversity pipeline, the representation of white students in the pool increases at each step of the pipeline, while the number of Asian, Black, and Hispanic students declines. Between graduating college and earning a teacher license, the Massachusetts Test for Educator Licensure is a critical step for college students seeking to become teachers, and the role it plays in educator diversity is complicated. What do you mean? The makeup of students who take the entails, I'm just going to call it the entails from now on, test at all is disproportionately white. What do you mean disproportionately white? I mean, if everybody who wants to take the test takes the tests, why is it disproportionately white? Disproportionately white compared to overall 4-year enrollment. Pass rates on the test, both for first attempts and with retakes included, are higher for white and Asian test takers. Oh, no? Candidates of color, which don't include Asians apparently, are also less likely to retake the exams after failing initial attempts compared to white candidates. Okay. And what is your proposed solution to this? However, exam pass rates alone do not fully explain racial disparities in program completion rates. I can believe that. Maybe you should talk to the people choosing not to become teachers. As the data show, the biggest losses in diversity happen early in the pipeline and suggest that once certified, teachers of color have similar hiring and retention rates. This means we need to diversify the pool of students interested in becoming teachers as early as high school. Creating initiatives to support diverse students. Okay, I'm just going to take a breather here for a second. Do you think an initiative counts as a program or activity under Title VI? Do you think it is at least implicative here that the Massachusetts Education Department is making programs specifically for students based on their race? I don't know. Let's see. Massachusetts takes action, improving diversity across the teacher pipeline. 1, encouraging more diverse students to become teachers. Here's where it gets all kind of crazy. If they just took the racial element out of all of this, I would have absolutely nothing to say. You want to encourage students to become teachers and educators, go for it. By all means. I'm not going to stop you. But what is so vital to you about the aesthetics? Don't we want good teachers first and foremost and only? What do you care what they look like? And again, if you're going off of the basis or the theory that, oh, well, a student that sees themselves in their teacher does better academically, well, then, again, I invite you to take that idea to its logical conclusion, and we might as well just roll back the clock on all educational civil rights actions over the last 50, 60 years. Just take us back to segregated schools. If that's what it's going to take to have the greater academic outcomes, well, then I guess that's what we have to do, right? Except you don't want to say that because that would actually line up with what you're proposing. And I'm talking not just about Massachusetts, but so many other educators I've looked at over the years. This is not the first time I've heard that theory. And it's not the first time I've taken it to its extreme conclusion. The Department of Higher Education's Tomorrow's Teachers Scholarship makes college more affordable for students interested in teaching careers. I really hope that scholarship does not have a racial test to it. DESE's Teacher Diversification Initiative funds high school pathway and financial assistance to to support more students of color in completing college and pursuing teaching careers. All right. I mean, again, I'm just a layman here. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe there's some legal loophole. But just to be pedantic, let me read it again. Simple justice requires that public funds to which all taxpayers of all races contribute not be spent in any fashion which encourages, entrenches, subsidizes, or results in racial discrimination. Students of color, you're going to set aside money and funds and scholarships specifically for students on the basis of their race, first and foremost. And then they mention again what we already went over. The Inspired initiative connects current educators with DESE to help cultivate, support, and retain a culturally responsive and diverse educator workforce in Massachusetts schools. Okay. Well, there you go. Just a hint of what's going on in Massachusetts. So again, we've gone over Oregon, gone over Massachusetts. Both states are saying outright, we're not rolling back anything involving DEI. Nothing we are doing violates Title VI. We do not need to recertify our compliance with Title VI or other federal civil rights laws. Okay, well, I mean, if they say so, they probably know better than I do. And maybe they're right. Maybe all of that is completely above board. Maybe there's nothing to suggest that something is off base. Nothing to suggest what the Department of Justice might want to look into or audit. I might be just off my rocker here. I probably am. But to cap off the show, let's finally go to the great state of Vermont. Let's take a look at what Vermont is up to. Let me get rid of all of my... That's Vermont. That's Vermont. I got all my Vermont stuff now. Yes. Yes. Okay. All the tabs remain are nothing but Vermont. So I can't go wrong. He says that now. Okay. Let's move on first to a educational equity brief. Now, admittedly, this is a couple of years old. It's from 2019. So we're not talking recent history, but at the same time, if there's a red flag in ideology or programs and activities from just a couple of years ago, it might still be something worth looking at. Supporting our students of color. Okay, and I know. I'm not going to read it again, but I'm just going to put it up on the screen again, just for anybody who wants to pause and refresh themselves. Moving on, the MTSS Educational Equity Brief offers research, best practices, and resources that support students of color. Despite our deep commitment to educational equity, still achievement gaps persist for many of these students based on academic data. Results from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, consistently show gaps between African American and white students in math and reading. And obviously, again, where there's a disparity, obviously, an inequity is taking place. This trend from the NAEP is reflective of patterns seen in state and local assessment data as well. Therefore, it is important that we provide access, opportunity, and equity through culturally responsive environments that are aligned to the needs of students, as long as they have a particular skin color. The MTSS framework promotes an actionable systemic approach, systemic, you say, that can effectively address the needs of our students of color. These smallest positive acts of support by educators can have an enormous impact on the success of students of color. The following are practical suggestions to consider. Number one, invest time in getting to know your students of color. I don't mean to sound like a jerk when I say this, but again, why not just work with your students regardless of their skin color? You want equity, which you somehow conflate to meaning equality, even though under this definition, that's not what it means. Then why do you keep putting qualifications on who qualifies for your effort? And of all qualifications to put on them, their race. Number two, offer ways for students of color to bring pieces of their culture into the classroom, school, and district. Because, white kids, none of them have any unique culture. Obs. Provide a safe space for students of color to have hard conversations and explore the issues that are relevant to them because of their skin color. Invite families and community members to become educational partners. That's the first benign entry on this list. Expose students of color to role models of color. Yes, segregate your kids on the basis of race. It's fine. It's fine. Invite guest speakers and mentors of color into the classroom and school. But never mind anybody who isn't the appropriate race. Use texts and media that include positive, successful, and diverse characters. Okay, Huckleberry Finn. Support efforts to improve teacher and educator diversity. Oh, okay. Well, we already have. You can take some inspiration from the Inspired initiative from Massachusetts. Hey, empower students of color to tell their own stories. Because white students all have the same story, obviously. Pay attention to your own storytelling, your own language, and ensure that it does not reflect a single exclusive narrative. Oh, you mean aside from an entire list of steps to take that exclude swaths of the population because they're not the right skin color? Anyway, I could go on with this, but I got at least 2 more tabs to get to. And again, links to all of this stuff is in the description below if you want to take a look for yourself. This is all public information. So I got one more here I want to do. Yeah, this one, I don't know. I just have an affinity, if you will, for anti-racism. This is from December of 2022. Welcoming equitable and anti-racist communities update. Okay. The Vermont School Boards Association, the Vermont Superintendents Association, and the Vermont Principals Association announced the receipt of a grant award of $150,000 from the Vermont Community Foundation and Barr Foundation in early 2021. An additional award of $100,000 was provided in early 2022 to continue the collaborative work of the 3 associations. And a third award of $30,000 was granted in August of 2022 to extend the equity mini grants in local districts and schools. The total amount granted is $280,000. The grant funds support work by the associations to promote equity, inclusion, and anti-racism in communities statewide and is part of the Vermont Community Foundation's Welcoming, Equitable, and Anti-Racist Communities Recovery Initiative. Wow. The initial goals of the investment and spending outline, let's try that again. The initial goals of the investment and spending outline were developed with stakeholders in collaboration with the association staff and with input from a survey distributed to all members of the given associations. This newsletter serves as an update from VSBA, VSA, and VPA to our members on the shared work of supporting education communities to improve equitable practices and outcomes for all of Vermont students specific to this philanthropic investment. At the end of this grant update, we also included some closely related work and resources that were not specifically funded with these investments, but have a significant overlap. Okay. Let's take a look. Where is that? So we're looking at some contents here. Let's see. What do we want to look at? Diversity, equity, and inclusion in sports and activities. Well, let's start there. Woo. The grant has helped strengthen pre-existing and ongoing efforts in the area of sports and activities. Specifically, the grant has helped to fund the Anti-Hate Poster Contest, cash awards, and distribution of the winning poster to all schools, fund professional learning for athletic directors, and supplement the funding for DEI-focused content at the Student Athlete Conference in 2022. In partnership with the Vermont School Athletic Directors Association and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in Activities Subcommittee, the VPA has taken the following actions and will continue to advance these efforts going forward in conjunction with DEI Subcommittee leadership. The pre-game statement to be read and or posted before each event. I don't even know what that says. Let's see. Well, I mean, it looks okay. I'll just read it rather than going to another tab. I apologize for all the tabs. Our school and Name of away school. Okay. Remind participants and spectators of the requirement to behave in a respectful manner. Okay. Sportsmanship and safe playing environments are top priorities for all Vermont school-sponsored activities. This is especially true with respect to a person's race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, ethnic differences, or disability. Any violation on the field or in the stands can result in game stoppages, ejections, or forfeits. Well, that sounds perfectly reasonable to me. Okay. What else is going on? Reporting a concern form. NFHS implicit bias training. What does that entail? Oh boy, that is a gigantic report kind of thing. I do admit I have reached the limit of how deeply I looked into some of this stuff. Implicit biases. Curriculum, introduction, managing implicit. Oh my gosh. That is a stream and a half all by itself. So I'm going to have to skip that one for now. The anti-hate student poster contest. Ooh, do they have the results of that here? Can I look at those? Let's see. Anti-hate. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Activities Committee, a partnership between the Vermont Principals Association and the Vermont School Athletic Directors Association, is happy to announce the winners. The winners? Apostrophe S. The winners of this winter's. I wish I could show this to you. It'd be more tabs, and I really don't want to do so. They don't actually show the posters, and the hyperlink they have to the posters has been deleted, so you can't even see what the posters are anymore. Ah, shucks. Ah, shucks. All right, so that's all sportsmanship stuff. That sounds okay, right? I mean, there's probably nothing wrong there. It's probably all fine. Let's see. How about affinity spaces and networking opportunities? The Vermont education community has multiple opportunities for networking and affinity spaces related to equity, inclusion, and belonging. Connection and relationships is one of the most important parts of this work. Please ensure that you and your learning community are aware of the opportunities to connect with others around the state. Are the others about networking within my demographic? I don't know. Let's see. Superintendent, assistant superintendent networking spaces. The Leadership in Equity and Anti-Racism Drop-In is a virtual space held for superintendents to share their experiences, resources, and problems of practice in advancing educational equity in their systems each month. This is a VSA member benefit for superintendents and assistant superintendents. Nationally, women are underrepresented in the superintendency and face unique challenges, including both explicit and implicit biases on the job. The Women in the Superintendency Network is new this year for VSA superintendents who identify as women, okay, to gather, network, and discuss leadership challenges and opportunities. Oh, okay. Oh, what's this? In support of educational leaders of color in Vermont. A Place of Our Own, an affinity group for Vermont administrators of color. Oh. Okay, so you mean a racially exclusionary group within the Vermont Department of Education? This group provides an opportunity for BIPOC administrators working in predominantly white schools to come together and share experiences, learn from, and support each other through triumphs and challenges. The sharing of stories, experiences, ideas, successes, and lots of laughter provide a place for healing and growth that allows for racial equity transformation. Additionally, the affinity group has become a wonderful place to network, make statewide connections, as well as providing leadership and guidance on issues of educational equity. The group is facilitated by people and things and stuff, and okay, you can contact them there. Okay. So a racially exclusionary networking group within Vermont public schools. Now, I mean, I don't know, does that count as a program or an activity within an entity that accepts federal funding? I mean, maybe it, I don't know, does that tempt fate with federal law? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just a layman. I don't know anything. I didn't mean to play that. I meant to put up the background, not play the video. Too many tabs. Anyway, everybody, that's all the examples that I had. Now, again, this is just a couple hours worth of research on my part, looking through what's publicly available from the various states, Oregon, Massachusetts, and Vermont. Vermont is a bit, at least as far that stuff that I found, was a bit more cagey with how they referred to things here and there. But as we just saw, there's some things that sound a bit more explicit than others. Oregon is all more than happy to tell you all about it. Massachusetts similarly. But yes, these three states have denied that they are doing anything wrong, have defied the order to roll back any DEI initiatives, and have thus put their entire state public schools at risk of losing federal funding in the near future, should the Department of Justice decide to do so and the federal government elsewise. So I guess the question is, for you, dear audience, is anything I mentioned there, at the very least, suggestive of stepping on, if not stepping over the line, when it comes to Title VI as a starter? As a layman, I'd say it sure brings up some questions. Now, again, there is a plethora of statutes and precedents and so many other things involving civil rights law in education and elsewise that modify or enhance Title VI over the course of decades. So again, everything that I've just talked about, mentioned, or alluded to, it might all be perfectly above board. It might be. I don't know. But at the very least, I think some of it might at least justify an inquiry by the Justice Department to make sure that no one's civil rights have been violated, or more specifically, that none of these institutions have given preference to anybody on the basis of their skin color, thus violating Title VI, thus potentially forfeiting all of their federal funding. I'll take a moment here to go over some of your comments. If you have anything you'd like up on the screen or read by me, put it in the chat now. I'll scroll up a little bit and see if I've missed anything particular. Also, Kristen Scholl over on the X machine. Yes, I am simulcasting over on X, so if you happen to see me over there, please retweet if you have the ability to. Let's see what else we got here. Shadowclaw. Yeah, I figured my state be swallowing this BS. I don't know what state you're in, but I'll assume one of the three. Kiro Soldier, Scriblade, did you cover how Harvard is defying Trump's anti-DEI executive order? I haven't yet, unless I did. I've read a lot of articles recently about colleges and universities and such saying that they're not going to do the anti-DEI stuff. Harvard might have been included in there. I know that Harvard is in the news today because they've made a public statement going over their constitutional rights and so on. And again, not a lawyer, but I have a sneaking suspicion that if Harvard wants to go fully public, I mean, not publicly funded, privately funded, they're more than welcome to. They're not entitled to federal money. I don't know if they know that. Unless there is some clause written somewhere that says that Harvard shall forever receive federal money no matter what they do, I think they're more than welcome to just go fully private. They can become a private college. There's plenty of them out there. Let's see. Shadowclaw, I'm in Massachusetts. Well, you have my condolences. No, I'm sure Massachusetts is great. I've never been there myself, but I'm sure it's a lovely place. Alexander, hello. More than suggestive. Well, like I say, I'm just reporting what I found in my little research. There might be something else out there that says elsewise. Ken Lee, is there a separate group for monkeypox educators? I don't know. I mean, there's not a group for Asian American educators in most of these places, and certainly not a group for, I don't know, European American educator, even though we're all Americans. It's like, you know, if you're from America, if you're an American citizen, you're American. You're not African, you're not Asian, you're not European, you're American. That was the whole point. That's the whole idea behind doing away with these irrelevant divisions in personal merit, or at least that's the hope, right? But hey, what do I know? Twisted Skipster, scribbles. Hello, Twisted Skipster. And also Advocatus. Harvard has like a $60 billion endowment. Let them fund themselves. No kidding. Anyway, everybody, I've gone just over about the time that I wanted to go for this one. Again, this is just a cursory look at what I was able to find on the public record for Oregon, Massachusetts, and Vermont that pertains to their DEI initiatives and practices. The DEI initiatives and practices that they are all three states, refusing to overturn or apologize for or do away with. Now, the question will become, will the Trump administration follow through? If Oregon is denying any wrongdoing, and anything that I've listed just as example says to them, well, you violated Title VI, your federal funding is gone. Because again, it only needs to happen once and persistently. And as Title VI said, if you're not willing to go back into compliance, that's where the risk comes in. And Oregon has Oregon, Massachusetts, and Vermont, they have all these programs and initiatives that have been in place, may continue to be in place depending, and they've been given an opportunity to do away with them without penalty. And they've all said no. So, at that point, what happens? Does Oregon lose all federal funding for education? And Massachusetts, and Vermont, and New York, and potentially California? I heard a rumor California might be doing something similar soon. I guess we'll see. But here's the thing. Without consequence, there will be no change. So, for the sake of making an example and setting a precedent, I'm not jazzed about the idea that the educators and administrators in Oregon, Massachusetts, and Vermont are going to put the educational quality of their students at risk to stand on a box of virtue. But that might be what we're about to see. So, and if and when it happens, you can be sure I'll report it here on DEI Deathwatch, Mondays and Fridays at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Programming note, you will next find me, well, probably Wednesday on Midnight's Edge in the morning, but also Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for TED Excellence, where I'll go over another off-brand TED Talk for education and enlightenment. I'm going to try to find something serious-ish for this week. Not like how do strippers and feminists get along, or can you make cocoa with AI or something. No, I'm going to try to find a serious subject that we can all be educated on. That's my intent. Will I fulfill it? You'll have to find out on Thursday. Elsewise, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you so much for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, link is pinned to the top of the chat box. Thank you guys so much for your generosity. Very much appreciated. If you like this kind of thing, please do leave a like on the way out and or share my stuff. And if you'd like to have more information on some of the things that I covered, I left links to everything in the description below. You can pursue it at your leisure. Elsewise, everyone, have a good rest of your Monday. Hope you have a good week ahead of you. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.